Swing and a miss! Number 300 for Max Scherzer.
My favorite thing about baseball is hands down the beauty of watching one man step on a mound and make professional hitters look absolutely silly. It's an art form with no cap in ingenuity or craftsmanship, a bestowment of pure wonder that has graced us with a millennia of otherworldly performances we'll never see again. The big train, Walter Johnson, stifled unassuming hitters with a fastball they literally said they could not see, propelling him to 36 wins and 11 complete game shutouts back in 1913. With a 1.12 ERA and 13 complete game shutouts back in 1968, Hall of Famer Bob Gibson was so nasty, the MLB decided to lower the mound for good. Remember this nerd? That's Greg Maddux. Worth over 109 wins above replacement, the professor allowed only 73 earned runs and 12 dingers over a 411 inning Cy Young winning span between 1994 and 1995. The irony of the generation we live in today, however, is that this degree of dominance on the mound is so commonplace, it's almost impossible to stand out. But somehow, someway, Jacob deGrom stood alone atop the greatest currently in the sport, and in 2018, did something only 12 other guys have done in the history of America's pastime. Finding elite starting pitching in today's climate is easier than ever. Before 2017, we never had a season where more than 5 different qualified starters posted an ERA under 4 with a strikeout per 9 over 10. Between now and last year, there have been 22 different seasons in which that has happened. For the sake of comparison, let's play with that number before I finally get to my point on Jacob deGrom. 3 years ago, we only had 5 different starters commit that feat. Back in 2000, Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, and Bartolo Colon, yes, that Bartolo Colon, were the lone trio to do it. Save for just his 1991 season where he shared the feat with a big unit, Nolan Ryan was on another level of nastiness back in his prime, pulling it off 8 different times in his career. And in 7 of those seasons, he was the only person in the league to have done it. Add all of those previous marks together, and we are still 8 whole seasons short of matching the work of only 2 recent seasons of shared dominance. Point being, strikeouts no longer propel a pitcher's status above the rest the same way it used to. The fly ball revolution has inspired ball players to sacrifice contact in pursuit of dingers, and Ks are spreading all over the league like the plague. In-depth, sabermetric statistics have adjusted with the changing tide, so deGrom couldn't just be nasty and wind up with a Fangraphs adjusted 8.8 wins above replacement. He had to be great in other areas, resort to unconventional quirks, and pitch at such a high level for so long it became customary. That's what he did, and he did it all season long. Let's go on a journey and start at Fangraphs. Obviously, a few of his surface stats stand out. His 1.7 ERA is the lowest in any given season since Zach Greinke's 1.65 clip back in 2015, and only the 9th time a starting pitcher has finished with one that low in the entirety of the live ball era. Of course, that's not the only impressive statistic here, as you can see with gaudy strikeout, walk, and peripheral ERA numbers all indicating dominance in one way or another. What stands out the most to me is the home run per 9 rate. At 0.41, deGrom allowed dingers at a rate similar to Jake Arrieta's magical Cy Young campaign, which coincidentally also happened back in 2015. Prime Jake Arrieta was a legitimate fly ball suppressor, a master of generating high rates of ground balls and weak contact at no expense to his elite strikeout rate. Given that deGrom just came off a 2017 season where he gave up his highest rate of hard contact, this particular stat perplexed me at first, which takes us to this, a woefully balanced batted ball table suggesting that deGrom has somehow achieved the rare feat of mastering contact management and merging it with a high rate of strikeouts. Focus on the soft contact rate for a moment. To the common eye, a 25.2% clip may not really mean all that much, but you have to remember 2 vitally important things here. deGrom struck out over 11 batters per 9 innings and walked less than 2. Almost 38% of opposing at-bats ended with either strike 3 or ball 4. When hitters put the ball in play, over a quarter of those batted ball events involved noticeably weak contact, which in layman's terms means they virtually hit themselves into an out. Considering 32.2% of at-bats against deGrom ended with a strikeout, that means deGrom virtually induced automatic outs at a rate of 57.4%, a statistic I can't really prove to be exactly true, but one I can most certainly provide some solid evidence for here. This is deGrom's infield fly ball rate, telling us that in 16.3% of at-bats, balls that were put in play wound up being infield pop-ups or pop-outs in foul territory. These accounted for more than half of the fly balls deGrom allowed all season. Paired with the ground ball rate I showed you earlier, this equates to over 60% of batted balls allowed having absolutely no chance of pairing hitters with anything greater than, by sheer luck and happenstance, maybe a double down the line. We'll be seeing more from Fangraphs in a moment, but our next stop at Baseball 7 is important because it segues into my next bit of evidence, deGrom's remarkable StatCast figures. This is where I could prove deGrom's contact management was more skill-based than luck-fueled. Here's a table overlay of all the biggest factors in regards to contact management. All the stats highlighted in red indicate that deGrom is at least in the top 7% of the entire league, which is obviously amazing, but none of this is possible without this being as low as it is. Barrels and barrel percentage tell us how often hitters were able to square up on pitches offered, and deGrom sitting at 4.1% suggests that hitters' chances of winning craps on the casino were about 400 times higher than their chances of making clean, solid contact off of one of his fastballs. Want more context over how insane that sounds? This is the StatCast leaderboard for pitchers who allowed more than 150 balls put in play. 310 pitchers fit the criteria, collectively averaging 4.5 barrels per plate appearance. At a clip of just 2.5%, deGrom ranks 18th on that list. The only guys ahead of him are a couple of starters, and the rest being a number of notably dominant relievers like Ryan Presley, Adam Ottavino, and Blake Trinan, who, trust me, will be getting his own deep dive very soon. After I extrapolated the threshold to only include starters, deGrom is second only to his very own teammate Noah Syndergaard, and 7 spots ahead of his other fellow teammate Zach Wheeler. Out of 656 different pitching seasons recorded by StatCast, in which a minimum of 250 balls were put in play, deGrom's rate of batted balls allowed per plate appearance this season ranks 24th. That's 97% better than any other qualified season recorded in the StatCast era. To further my point here, I use the same data qualifications for average exit velocity, a statistic that calculates the speed in which a ball leaves the bat, which in other words means a high number suggests a higher probability for a hit, and a lower speed suggests weaker contact and more automatic outs. Out of those 656 pitchers studied, deGrom's average opposing exit velocity, which was 85.5 miles per hour, is tied for 60th. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just the beginning of my research.
2-2. Struck him out.
Moves to it. Beleaguered now. Top running away.
Swung on and missed
On
him.
the 1-2. And Slater goes in.
And he strikes out Baez.
Jacob deGrom struck out a lot of batters this season, and I mean a lot of batters. Of all the seasons since 2013 in which a starting pitcher has thrown over 200 innings, only 13 of them included a strikeout rate over 30%. deGrom's performance in 2018 is one of them. Going back to Fangraphs, I found a myriad of things proving how he got there. For starters, he was 4th in all of baseball in average fastball velocity among qualified starting pitchers. That's a career high for deGrom. Relying on an increasing tendency to pitch up and above the strike zone, 16.2% of his fastballs in the strike zone were missed, 32% of all of his fastballs were whiffed at, and 33.9% of at-bats ending with his fastball were strikeouts. By itself, the pitch amassed an imposing 558 OPS, an 088 isolated power, and a 247 weighted on base percentage. Only Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, and Gerrit Cole had a better fastball this year, and the only other guy who matched DeGrom four-seam for four-seam was, well, this might be becoming a theme. Only 5 other starters this year had a better slider than DeGrom, according to pitch value rankings, and very few others even came remotely close to its 35.9% whiff rate and 207 opposing weighted on base percentage. Coincidentally, he utilized the pitch even more this season than any other previous campaign, which you can't really argue with considering how well he commanded it.
Not a strike, starts out as a strike, and you can't hit that pitch because it's a ball, and it's just so hard to lay off.
Here's what I'm talking about. Kicking off a tough outing in Boston last month, he gets ahead of potential AL MVP Mookie Betts 0-2, falls behind, loads the count, but then decides not to give in and darts the outside corner with a low 90s slider that just buckles his adversary. He proceeds to have his way with the AL East champs later on in the second inning, striking out the side by finishing off Ian Kinsler with one of his best sliders of the night. Up next is his changeup, a pitch he struggled with periodically over the course of 2017, but rounded all the way back to form in time for it to become his 3rd plus offering this year. Not only did it also lend to the barrage of weak contact and whiffs DeGrom was inducing elsewhere, it bolstered it profusely. Here's a breakdown of DeGrom's arsenal for the season. By factors like opposing batting average, weighted on base, and exit velocity, his 3rd most confident pitch was as good as the very best put on display by 2-time Cy Young Award winner Corey Kluber, whose quote-unquote breaking ball continues to defy the laws of pitch classification. Even DeGrom's least favorite pitch, the curveball, wound up generating an elite level of whiffs while tempering opposing power numbers to current-day Victor Martinez levels of ineptitude. Do you have any idea how poorly Victor Martinez hit in 2018? That's the median quality of production against DeGrom's worst pitch.
What?
Look in his eye. He's searching.
And he takes the fastball to Suzuki, and he chases the slider from half swing, and he goes. It shows up again.
In spite of all this dominance, perhaps the most impressive thing about Jacob deGrom this season is that he performed at the absolute highest level every 5 days. On April 10th in Miami, deGrom was slated to a 3-run lead heading into the 5th inning where he served up a 4th spot to the Marlins and finished the night with a 6th inning, 4-run performance with 8 base runners allowed and 6 strikeouts. As of this recording, Jacob deGrom has not allowed more than 3 runs in a start since. That was 6 months ago. Beginning on May 18th, Jacob deGrom has posted 24 consecutive quality starts. He struck out 8 or more batters in 15 of those starts, and in 9 of those starts he fanned 10 or more. Throughout this streak, he's done a number of other incredible things. In a 1-month span between May 18th and June 18th, concluding with a dominant road performance at Coors Field of all places, Jacob deGrom lasted at least 7 innings, allowing no more than 2 earned runs and struck out at least 7 batters in every start. He walked 10 batters in that time frame. He only walked 6 more guys in his 93 2/3 innings pitched after the All-Star break, a period in which hitters hit just 186 with an opposing weighted on base of 211, while deGrom only intentionally walked 2 guys and hit no one. Leaving his best work for last, deGrom fanned 45 more batters in September, while opposing hitters hit just 125 and slugged 198. His 32.5% strikeout to walk ratio last month was better than that of the entire regular season totals of every reliever in baseball besides, get this, Edwin Diaz, Josh Hader, and Dellin Betances. I had mentioned before that deGrom hadn't given up more than 3 runs in a game since April. Had it not been for an injury-shortened home start against the Braves on May 2nd and a rain-delayed road tilt against the Phillies 11 days later, deGrom would have decimated the previous Major League single-season record set by Cy Young Award winners Bob Gibson in '68 and Chris Carpenter back in 2005, both of which had 22 consecutive quality starts. He only finished 2018 with 24, but remember, this is still an active streak, so the history pages have yet to stop turning. Here's my final argument point for Jacob deGrom. ERA plus factors in ballpark factors and strength of opponent, with the league average hovering around 100. Compared to the average starting pitcher, whose ERA this season would normally be around 4.15, deGrom not only allowed less than twice as many runs as the average Joe, he was more than twice as effective. deGrom was so great this season, only 12 other pitchers in the history of the game have done what he did. Pitched to an ERA at or below 1.7 with an ERA plus over 215. Do you know who those other 12 guys are? Denny Driscoll, Tim Keefe, Cy Young, ironically, Christy Mathewson, Mordecai Brown, Dutch Leonard, Pete Alexander, Bob Gibson, Dwight Gooden back in 1985, Greg Maddux did it twice, Pedro Martinez did it once, and Zach Greinke back in 2015. Jacob deGrom killed the significance of the win by himself in 2018. And if my argument isn't enough to convince you that he's a runaway Cy Young Award winner at the very least, I simply don't know what else could. By Fangraphs measurements, he's a full win and a half more valuable than the 300 strikeouts and 18 wins provided by Max Scherzer, and a full win more valuable than Milwaukee Brewer Christian Yelich. For all the statistical accolades he's amassed this season alone, the fact that not even everyday players have offered similar levels of value in over 130 more games speaks volumes of the spellbinding mastery Jacob deGrom yielded for 6 months. This was easily one of the greatest single-season baseball performances I have ever seen in my life, and definitely one of the very best the sport has ever witnessed. What do you think about Jacob deGrom's chances at winning an MVP this season, let alone the Cy Young? Feel free to leave a comment and get the discussion going. As always, I want to thank the wonderful folks at Fangraphs.com, BaseballReference.com, BrooksBaseball.com, and BaseballSavant.com for compiling the data necessary for me to come full circle with my research. I also want to thank you all for watching. I understand that stat crunching can get very overwhelming to the common eye, but hopefully I broke it all down in a way that was much easier to digest. God bless you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.